and welcome to the Doug Geiser Show, Year 2, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Cade Krakis, and I'm joined by Doug Geiser, the head coach of the Ashland University football team. Coach, I appreciate you sitting down with me here today.
It's good to come back again.
It's great to have you here, Coach. Obviously, this past weekend, the NCAA tournament you guys were competing in, the second round, unfortunately, you guys finished the season at an overall record of 9-4 with a loss in that game. Before we dive in depth on that game, what is your initial thoughts about how the season went for you guys?
You know, I was extremely proud of the way the team fought, especially coming back from an 0-2 start and believing in the process, trusting in each other, playing together, sticking together, and we're able to, ultimately win a GMAC title for the second time in 3 years and get to the playoffs again for the second time in 3 years. So it's a very successful season in that regard, especially with how young we were. And like I said, I'm just extremely proud of the group for going and achieving after putting themselves behind the 8 ball.
For sure, Coach. And when you look at this past weekend, obviously, let's take a look at this game real quick against the Vulcans. A 1-point game. It was a nail-biter down to the wire. What was your breakdown of that game directly following it?
Well, it was extremely cold. That didn't affect the outcome per se because both teams got to play in that. But you go into a competitor stadium like Cal PA, a great storied program, great tradition. I got a lot of respect for Coach Dunn and his program, his staff, and his players. And we ultimately made too many mistakes to be able to move on. We had a couple hiccups in the kicking game. Had a couple kicks one kick blocked and one kick missed. A couple explosive plays on defense. A couple drive-stopping penalties on offense. So we got to play a little bit better overall. We can't have self-inflicted wounds in a venue like that to be able to move on to the round of 8.
And Coach, a couple times this year on the show, you've talked about some of those storied programs and those ones that have deep-rooted history. And those come with some teams that you faced this year, including teams like Ferris State. What do those types of programs do to help grow a program like ours? Well,
the reason the guys come to Ashland is to play against the best. Our ultimate goal is to win it all. And that's where we're building to and where we want to get to. And so in order to do that, you got to play the best to find out what it's like to be in that kind of atmosphere. So that's why you schedule an IUP or a Ferris or, a Cal PA, Charleston's kind of a newcomer there. And then in the league, obviously we play some of those programs too. We have to because they're in the league at that point. But you play your Finleys and your Tiffins and your ODUs, your Hillsdales. So it just helps. It raises the bar more than anything else. So the guys know what we're working to. So now at the end of the season here, when we have our player evaluations, you have your last team meeting, which is scheduled for tomorrow. You set those goals moving forward. Say, hey, guys, you know what it takes now. You've been in that venue. In order to move beyond, here's what you got to do. So they actually have real life experience with that now, not just me telling it to them. And I think it's very, very powerful to ingrain it.
Yeah, and a word you said there was player evaluations, or 2 words I guess you said there was player evaluations. When you look at this loss this past week, and obviously you guys didn't hand out any game balls or anything like that, but who are the standouts that you saw?
Well, as always, you look at, I thought on offense, the two running backs I thought ran extremely well. They're really salty against the run. They're a big defensive line. And, we're able to put up 180, almost 200 yards rushing against them. And I did not expect to that extent. So give some kudos to the offensive line along those regards there. Tyler Davis on offense had the best game of his career. And he's had a really good career for us, but he really stepped it up in this playoff game and was a big-time factor. Caught the Hail Mary at the end of the first half. A lot of catches, kept drives going. So, really proud of those guys in that respect. And you look in defense, you have guys like, Mike Shimmick. It seems like I say his name every single week this year. And Ben Holzoffel. Those guys are warriors, and they come in, they compete, and bring it at a high level every week. So, I'd probably start at those positions right there.
And you mentioned it too, with nearly 200 rushing yards, over 300 passing yards, so over 500 yards in total on the offensive end. What really led to that success this week for you guys?
You look at there's actually 2 weeks in a row, both games in the playoffs, we're in excess of 500 yards offense, and putting up a lot of points, putting over 30 points in each one against really good football teams. So I think it's a culmination of those. They started out slow at the beginning of the year. Of course, you're playing really good teams defensively at that point, with a lot of guys playing prominent roles for the first time. So I think it's just a credit to those players and the offensive coaching staff for continue to keep chopping wood, keep about their knitting, and things grew throughout the season there. And we had some injuries early on at receiver, and those guys started building that relationship with Trevor. And you saw the fruits of that at the end. It was really neat to see. They really had it coming together here at the end of the season.
And to address kind of the, I guess you'd say, oddity of Saturday was that comeback in the fourth quarter from the Vulcans. 33-21, you guys were leading when that happened. When you look back and address it and take a look at it, what do you think really led to it?
Well, I mean, you got to finish the game. You know, you allowed some. We'll start there. Defensively, you allow some big plays. They ripped off a couple big runs on the first touchdown to cut it down to within a touchdown, and then you know, you got to be able to play ball in the air. And you know, now it is a team sport. It's not defense's fault or anything on those. You don't point any fingers, because the offense had some opportunities in there too to respond. And on that very first drive, after the long run on their part to score, you know, we started strong but had a penalty that put us behind the sticks. Ultimately stopped the drive, so you got to give the ball back to them in that case right there. And you know, you looked at missed opportunities in the kicking game too. You know, and you got to be able to convert when those things happen. So, you know, it was a just like it's always a team win. It was a team loss, and you know, credit to Cal for making those plays. You know, but I think we helped them along as well to that victory.
And obviously, Coach, too, this year's success and the growth is not diminished or ruined by any means in the loss in the second round. So how has that taste of tournament play really helped kind of solidify that extent for you of how well this year went and what you want bringing to the team coming forward?
Well, I think you look at it last year. I always look at each season to kind of build on the previous season. So last year, we didn't win the conference, but had a chance to go to a bowl game and win the first bowl game in school history. So you build on that this year, way to build on it. You win the conference this year. You get a chance to go to the postseason. And now next year, as we embark on that journey, you challenge them, hey, let's find a way to go beyond that now. And what does that mean? In Ashland's history, we've never won 2 playoff games in the same year. So that's what we were going for on Saturday. So now that's something to strive for next year in addition to the other goals we have. So, you know, you can't put the cart before the horse, but you challenge the leaders, you challenge the team, say, hey, if this is what we want to do, and we've talked about this before as a group, as a unit, you know, okay, now what do we need to do to get back to that point?
Yeah.
So, you know, you look to, develop the guys and, physically and their skill wise, but you add to that as well in recruiting, which we're, jumping into with great speed here this week.
Yeah, and speaking of developing and recruiting, what are we looking like come this next spring for you guys? Obviously, with losing so many seniors and trying to look for that next man up, are there some eyes and some people we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I can't talk about any recruits at this point because they're not signed, and so I'd be committing an NCAA violation by doing that. Okay, so I can't go
Don't want
there.
you doing that.
Yeah, I'll suffice to say at this point we're at 5 commits. Guys we've offered scholarships to. We have our first official visit coming up this Thursday and Friday already. So when I say we're literally jumping into it full speed, we are literally jumping into it at full speed, and we'll probably have 2 weekends of official visits before Christmas. 1 unofficial visit. We'll have 4 or 5 of those in January as well. So we're definitely looking to supplement the roster, and it's being one of the top Division II programs in the country. You hope you don't have to have young guys come and play right away, but if they're good enough, they will. And I think we're on some guys that'll push to do that. And, so it's a constant process. And the neat thing about my job as a head coach in football is the emphasis of the job changes every 3 or 4 months. So we're just, abruptly getting out of the 3 or 4 months of being in season and being that crucible of pressure. And now all of a sudden you shift gears in the next 3 months, we're in recruiting and trying to bring in the 2025 class and supplement, the losses we're going to have from a great senior class. And then once you're through that and signing date, then all of a sudden you're into spring practice and developing our skills again. And then you're into May recruiting and so on and so forth. So it keeps you fresh, that's for sure. You don't get burned out in any portion of it, and it's a neat thing to be a part of.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. We'll take a break and then talk a little bit more about the overall view of the 2024 season.
Okay, thank you.
It is now time for us to take a quick break and join you all back here shortly. A reminder to stay tuned through this commercial break. You're watching the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show, right here on AUTV. Coach, it's time for the final segment of today's show. So let's recap the 2024 season before we take a look at the overall schedule and kind of how things shook out throughout the year. When you talk about this season at large, it was kind of Ashland versus the world at times, it felt. How did you guys in the locker room really take that storyline, shape it into what you guys wanted it to be, and use it to excel?
Well, one of the things I'm always sensitive to is really trying to grow the chemistry of the group. And I think one of the things we do, it's not unique to us, is we break our big team. When we start training camp in August, I think we're in 170s, okay? And we break that big team down into 15 smaller teams that we call accountability teams. The team votes on captains. Those captains will draft their team. And together, they're charged with getting to know each other, number one. They do community service together. They compete on different things together. And it gives the young guys an older guy to kind of go to that they might not feel as, I don't know what the word is. They won't feel as daunted, going out and throwing themselves out there. It's a contact person that they can go to, if they have a problem, a question, something like that. And oh, by the way, if you flip that, then it forces those older guys to become leaders and, become responsible to a smaller group. And you prepare them for that. And I think a lot of our success with our chemistry really comes from that. And you can't assume the guys know how to lead. You got to teach them how to lead. So another thing we do throughout the season is I actually have the guys read a book. I have the captains read a book, and we talk about that every week. And invariably, it's about leadership. It's about teamwork. Invariably, from there come messages that we're encountering throughout the season. So it forces those captains, those leaders, to look beyond themselves and to kind of grow in it. It kind of takes them out of that crucible a little bit. And I think it's been really, really valuable for us in that, so you never take that part advantage. And I think the reason that we've been able to stick together, fight together, and play together is because we're really, really, really sensitive and we really preach those things, we really teach those things as far as camaraderie, teamwork, leadership, and all that stuff together. It's a lot of times, that's a lot more important than the X's and O's.
And obviously every year you kind of talk about that team morale and that team kind of chemistry you always work on. But also every year you also like to highlight people who have stood out throughout the year. And last year, a big one was the wideout Desmond Lyburtis. When you look at this year's breakout talented players, who really stood out to you at large that was kind of the X factor on a given day?
Well, I think if you start on the offensive side of the ball, I thought Trevor Bazinski continued to grow in that role. And he's not naturally a loud and boisterous person, but he's got a calmness about him. He always keeps a level head, and he's flatlined in that respect. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, doesn't get down on himself, just keeps playing. And having your quarterback be the example like that is a good thing. You look also on the offensive side, Tony Panunzio. As we've always talked, you challenge your seniors to have their best game or best season of their career as a senior. Tony did that in spades. Tremendous story for us, and one we'll always brag on as far as the development of an Ashland man. Tony Panunzio did that in that vein. You look up front, the offensive line for having 3 freshmen and 2 juniors did a great job, I thought, throughout the year of bonding, and really were really playing at a high level as the year finished. And so it's exciting to have all those guys back next year, and we got some young guys too that are going to push them for playing time, which is exciting for us. You look on the defensive side of the ball, I think you start with somebody like Mike Shimmick. Mike Shimmick built on the great, impressive last half of last season and was a dominant defensive end for us the whole year. And in addition to that, getting Jeff Barnett back so they could kind of play off each other as a friendly competition as far as who's going to get to the quarterback first, that was a big key for us defensively. And then I think if you look inside, we had 3 seniors on the inside on the defensive line that were stellar for us the whole year. You got Colin Strong and Christian Garish and Mason Graney, and they really led their room, and they did a lot with their production, so it leader by example, but also in a real way too, where they're able to develop those young guys in the defensive tackle position as well to play at their level. So defensively, I think if you look at those positions right there, that was a key to our success throughout the year.
And obviously you guys had strong finishes in conference play and then a strong showing in the NCAA tournament. How do you feel that the team worked together to kind of put together that work that they've done all year long and make it into successful play on the field?
Well, I think one of the keys there is throughout the season, I tried to break an 11-game season down into 4 quarters. So it can be daunting as you try to look at the end first and the result of where you want to be. That's hard because you can't control those things at one point. But as I famously said, you try to go 1-0 every week. But what I did, the first quarter of our season was the 2 out-of-conference games, IUP and Ferris. And kind of the theme there was, hey, you shoot your shot against the best. Let's see where we stack up against some of the best teams in the country. Must not have been a great message for me because we started out 0-2. But the next portion of it, the second quarter, was playing 4 teams that have all won the GMAC at some point in the league's existence. And a real key for us, if we wanted to get a chance to win the league, we had to go 4-0 in that second quarter. And the guys really dug into that message, and they fought like crazy. And we're fortunate enough to be able to beat some, 4 very, very talented teams. I mean, you look at that Hillsdale team where we got our first win. They finished up 3rd in the league, and just like last year, they were coming on like gangbusters at the end of the year. You look at Tiffin perennially. They think they finished 2nd in the league, and Findlay, the same way. And ODU is tough no matter whenever you play them. So being able to do that, you get to the 3rd quarter then, and then you get to the 4th quarter of the season as you break it down. By the time you get to the postseason, you're battle tested. And now it's a matter of, hey, you're one of the top 28 teams in the country at this point. You realize that. You're in the top almost 5-6% of Division II football. Now you just shoot your shot. Okay, there hasn't been anything you haven't seen at this point. Let's go out and let's keep the same message. Let's be 1-0 every week. You do that, and guess what? In 4 weeks, you're playing for a national championship. So you try to make it real for them at that point, and then once again, you telescope it back to this week, whatever week you're in. Don't worry about the future at this point, but if you keep on your path, you know where it's going and you know where the ultimate goal is. So I think being able to, in answer to your question, going back and be able to break things down into smaller pieces, that's easier to digest as you're building up momentum through the season.
For sure, and speaking of that schedule, we'll take a look at the schedule and see how you guys ended up at this 9-4 overall record. When you look at this year, Coach, obviously a very long-winded season starting on the 5th of September, going all the way nearly to December. When you look at it, how proud are you of your team to sticking to it all year long and continuing on the grind?
I would say I'm proud of the fact of the reason you're able to play that long is you've prepared your body and your mind to play that long. So I'd give a shout out at this point to our strength coach. There's 2 strength coaches this year, Malcolm Majeski, and then when Malcolm left us, we were able to hire somebody like Kyle Gilbert. They do a tremendous job with our guys with motivation and also getting them in great shape in the weight room, on the track, on the field. So it allows them to come to us and be able to practice at the intensity we need to and the tempo we need to, but also for your body to stand up through the rigors of almost a 3-month season at that point, playing every week. We didn't have any bye weeks, anywhere in there as well. So I think that right there, if you don't have the physical, you're at that point mentally you're not going to be able to hang in. You won't be mentally tough enough because your body's not going to allow you to. It goes into shutdown mode.
Well, Coach, my final question for you today, for today's show and for the final show of the 2024 season is, if you had to give a little bit of a pitch to guys staying tuned in and getting ready for the winter and spring to be right around the corner, what would it be for the fans out there to know that this Ashland team is sticking to it and next year you guys are going to come back even stronger?
Hey, the biggest thing we're going to do right now is I'm taking this week and the next week and we're evaluating the total program. I learned from one of my mentors, Coach Owens, Lee Owens, and he had a phrase, don't dilly. Okay, don't do it like last year just because it worked last year. That might not work for the 2025 team. So we're going to look at every aspect of our program, from the roster we have coming back to coaches, the way we practice, the way we prepare, what we do in the off season, and does it fit this team coming up? Is it going to fit what our goals are and where we want to be? And then after that evaluation, you lay out the plan for next year, and you go at it again. Well, so if people want to track our progress and see if we can build on what we built this year, come on out, check us out at the spring game, and hopefully next fall as well.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining me today and all season long.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Kate.
As a reminder, be sure to tune into the Early Birds Word Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. for exclusive coverage of AU football throughout the spring as well. I'm Cade Crackus saying thank you so much for tuning into the Doug Geiser Show all fall right here on AU TV.